Good
Interesting.
evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another Motormouth this month. Some may say that since Graham Hooper's been at DIA, we're chocking these Motormouths and training courses up. So he's certainly being productive for us already. We've got a special Motormouth tonight. We're looking at a topic that we shouldn't be saying this is the first time we've looked at it in any detail. And that's the whole point of tonight's discussion. It shouldn't be a thing that we treat as a special subject. We're going to be talking about equality, diversity, and inclusion in the sector. And with me, I have some very special guests to discuss this topic, who I'll let introduce themselves in a moment. Just waiting for a few of you to file in at the back of the class there. Thank you for giving up your time again this week. I know some of you are regular attendees of this session, and I know some of you will be first timers. Motormouth is not a webinar. It's not a tutorial. It is a no holds barred discussion of hot topics that are occurring in our industry, in our profession at this time. So here you will find views that are frank and open, and we'll be having discussions that sometimes may be even uncomfortable with people, but without that debate and the discussion and raising those challenges, we can't get to the solutions or the opportunities that will help develop the profession further. So I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping to start. I'm Carly Brookfield. I'll just be your host this evening, working the controls. I'm the CEO of DIA. Just for your purposes in the as delegates here, in the bottom bar or top bar on your screen, you're going to see a Q&A button and you're going to see a chat button. Any questions that you want to raise and direct towards our panel this evening, put them in the Q&A section, and myself and Graham will pick them up as we chat. If you just want to chat amongst yourselves, please feel free to do that. We'll also keep an eye on that chat as well, and we'll pick up any particular points that you're making that are important to share with the wider audience and delegates as well. If we're all ready to go, we are now at 1936. I think it's time to actually start the discussion itself. I'm going to kick over to my co-host, Graham Cooper, to start the introductions, and then we'll go with Tommy, Kenny, and Samia after that.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Like for tonight, I mean, I feel this webinar is really important. I've known Tommy, Kenny, Samia probably for over a decade, worked with them all, and I think it's really important that, and I was thinking about this when we create this webinar, I can't walk in their shoes. I'm on this webinar, I'm the ignorant white man. Yeah, because I cannot walk in somebody else's shoes where I haven't walked through their history. So I'm interested to hear how they've developed and what barriers they've faced and what needs to change and improve. So that's me done.
Kicking over to Tommy now, just because he's in my line of sight in the celebrity squares I'm looking at.
Hi, my name's Tommy Sanding. I run the school called Smart Learner Driving School. I've got about 70 guys working for us. I've started my career as a one-man band. I've grown my school to quite a lengthy amount. I also work with the TTC group on speed awareness courses, international work, array of different roles I've done over the years. And today we're here to talk about diversity. I'm really pleased that we are putting this on the table and getting people to understand what the difference people have when they're training or delivering lessons to people.
And Kenny.
Hi, my name's Kenny Lawrence. I'm based in Swindon, Wiltshire. I've got a driving school, KL Driver Training. I've been in this industry nearly 25 years now, and I'm really excited to see what the conversation takes today, where it goes.
And finally, but least but not least, Samia.
Hi everyone, I'm Samia. I'm based in Stoke-on-Trent. I've got my own driving school, Evolve Driver Training. I've started my instructor journey at the age of 23, and it was back in 2008, and I was the second South Asian female driving instructor in Stoke at that time. And since then, there's been many more now. But yeah, I'd love to see how this topic goes, where diversity and inclusion is better understood, so it promotes a better driving industry for us all.
Brilliant. Thanks for those introductions. As I said at the top of the recording there, I am Carly. I'm the CEO at DIA. And if you watch these regularly, you'll hear far too much of my voice. So I'm going to try and be a little bit quieter in this session. Other than if we want to talk about diversity in terms of female leaders or female leadership figures, I'm very happy to chip in on that score. Tommy, I'm going to kick over to you first because you had some interesting challenges and questions to kick us off this evening. Do you mind doing that?
Yeah, of course I can. I think the first question that we've always got to ask is, what does equality, diversity and inclusion mean? And it's a classic example. I put some out on post today, and a lot of people didn't quite understand the question I put out. So I suppose the first thing we've got to do is understand what equality, diversity and inclusion means. Who's going to answer?
Shall we let the middle-aged white male answer that one first?
Yeah.
Oh,
Come on, Graham, give us a succinct definition.
of what? How?
Bear in mind it's a succinct
Well,
and it's
I
Graham
mean,
who...
I think my problem stems from attending meetings where, and this actually sort of stemmed from a meeting we were in the other week with the DVSA, and the whole meeting is full of white people. Now, I know that during my time, I've met some really great trainers along the way. These three included. I'll include them. Yeah. Well, because I'm nice sometimes. But no, seriously. And I just think, how can people like who are here today with me, and I know they're good trainers, why haven't they got a voice? Yeah. What's stopping the invite? You know, I can't understand, and I think this is not really for me to solve. This is for me to open my mouth and say it doesn't seem quite right. You know, I think, you know, predominantly for a long time we have. I mean, look, even forget women for the moment. We were middle-aged white men. Driving instructors were middle-aged white men and older for a long time.
Would you say, Graham, in your time of being in this industry, that it has shifted quite a lot, that nowadays you're seeing more women, you see more people from different cultures?
Well, I think the first shift was more women, yeah, without a doubt. Then there was, you know, a gentle rise in Asian men, shall we say. Kenny, still not a lot of black men. I mean, you know, I don't know about yourself, but I know a few quite well, but I don't know a lot.
I'll definitely say there's more Asian men and Asian women than there is black men in this industry. And I've been there for close to 25 years. I spent quite a long time living and working in London before moving down to Wiltshire, and nothing's really changed. There's only been I think there was only one black male driving instructor when I moved to Wiltshire, and now there's maybe about 10, but it's still low in comparison to the other nationalities that's here.
In Stoke-on-Trent, and funnily enough, I had a conversation with an instructor at the test centre. This was just literally 3 weeks ago, and he was telling me he was one of the first black instructors in Stoke, and then now, counting him, there's 2. So,
it's doubled.
So, you know, that just says about the diversity in the industry. Even when I started myself, to be fair, I don't even think there were many young driving instructors. Yeah. So it was unheard of any instructor being in their 20s and joining the industry. It was all, like you said, middle-aged white men. And even when I was finding myself a driving instructor, I couldn't find a female, even a white female English driving instructor. Couldn't find one. Very, very hard to find.
Okay. Yeah, I think diversity is obviously the presence of kind of different people within a group. And we have to take a bit of responsibility as Asians or cultural people that we don't put ourselves out as well. But when we do put ourselves out, you know, we are the only person in that room. And that can be daunting, and that can be hard as well, that you have to really try. And that's been always a problem, that we have a glass ceiling, that we can reach so far, but then we can't penetrate through. And that's quite important, that if, you know, we're not invited to a meeting, for example, the DVSA Part 2 training and all the rest of it, how can we break through that ceiling? Because people think they're representing everybody. But how can they represent everyone? Because not everybody's present at that meeting, if that makes sense. And that's an important part of the diversity pool, if that makes sense.
Tommy, how would the DBSA go about inviting?
Well, I think the first thing is that associations have got to recognise that there are different people in different cultures, but we don't get tapped up. And I guess I get people ringing me now saying, "Oh, do you want to come along?" and everything else. But truly, we should be recognised. There's plenty of trainers out there in forums, and Graham's recognises people, and Carly recognises that they should be kind of asked, why are you not representing? Why? And I get it. Some trainers, some ethnic groups will say, "Well, I don't want nothing to do with it."
Sure.
But that's probably because we feel alienated. And I can give you groups that I'm in that I'm the only person in 43 that's a man of color. And that's quite daunting. So it can be quite hard to get recognized, even though we got the capabilities. That's, I think, is a major issue that the associations have got to say, right, firstly, why are we not representing the full diversity within our associations? And then we may be able to have that conversation a bit further, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And obviously, as the head of an association, I completely take your point on board. And it's a question of what can we do to encourage people to step up. And I'm very open to the fact that when we go to representative meetings at DVSA, I'm very happy to take somebody along with me. The only thing I say is obviously making sure that they've also got the broad expanse of expertise in driver training that's required as well, because we can't just have this as an agenda item. If we want inclusivity, we also want it to be about somebody being there because they are a recognised expert in training. We don't want tokenism, is what I'm saying.
Sure.
So, or I think we don't want tokenism. Feel free to correct me, but as a female,
you're spot on. You're spot on.
As a female who's gone into industries where females aren't at the top of the tree necessarily always, and we are treated in a certain way, like investment banking and now driver training to some respect. You can. The Kristen Scott Thomas speech in one particular comedy with Phoebe Scott Waller, which I think is absolutely brilliant, around awards that are given to women sometimes in business, and she calls them the children's table of awards. And it is sometimes you're given stuff because you're a woman in business or you're a woman in training, and it's just like you don't feel like I'm being recognised for being the professional. You were just scouting around for a female to give that award to because you've just given birth to that award because you've recognised we need a category.
Can I be the ignorant white man here? Okay, what happens, and this is the cognitive bias, what happens is when people get a token award, the white people go, "Oh, that's just a token award because they're black, because it's an Asian female." And it just breeds crap, doesn't it? And there's no, then it's like, and I can't walk in your shoes, but I would be feeling something like F off. Why aren't I getting it for being me? And I find the whole thing very frustrating because straight away people are demeaning any achievements because they go, "Oh, you're only getting it because," and I just find that so untrue.
Yeah, and that I suppose rolls on to nicely about equality. That it has to be fair, and a lot of people will think fairness is purely that we're both standing together in the same room, but we've got to recognize that some people have different kind of needs compared to somebody else. Just because and again on this social post, people are saying, "Yeah, but it's all fair, it's all done the same way," but we're not all the same. We look in this room today, there's, we're all different colors and shapes and sizes. We all have different needs. So, how do we address them needs in a way that is fair across the board in equalness, but also understands each person's individuality and needs, I suppose.
I suppose that goes to a very simple concept, which is asking the question, what are the needs? When was the last time, and I can't remember, and I've just tried to look for some information that's easily accessible about ethnicity profile of driver trainers. When was the last time that, for example, the regulator sent anything out to you on either working as an ADI survey or in any form asking you about your ethnicity and your experiences and your needs in the profession? Because I can't see it on the latest working as an ADI survey either.
Do you think, because someone's made a good point here, and I can't see, I jotted it down. the DVSA's recruitment for examiner diversity, you know, someone's asked how many Asian and Black examiners are there. I don't know the answer, but actually the only ones I knew have left.
Again, I think it's a very important subject that people are moving into the industry, and I know personally of some examiners and plus managers that are working well. But the question is that they will leave because they hit that ceiling. They don't get progressed. They don't get to the top jobs. And if you look across the DVSA as a whole, how many Asian Black cultural people are there in the senior roles? And I don't know.
It's crazy that you're saying that, because I was having that same conversation to a friend of mine who's a consultant in the NHS, and he said the exact same thing. And he said, we call it snowy peaks.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's across most industry, isn't it? So we know the DBSA is, as Graham said at the beginning, it's male, white, heavy. And then if you're lucky to get an Asian or Black male or female or other ethnic in there, they're more likely going to be at the bottom end as just the examiners who go out and do the learner lessons. How often do we even see the examiner who's doing, say, part 2 or part 3 or standard check that's from an ethnic background?
Samia, what are your thoughts on this? I
personally think with the diversity, well, in Stoke, honestly, there aren't any. They're all white men. Maybe one white woman. Even her, I don't think she's very happy where she is. So that's the ones that I've come across. It would be nice where people do want to see familiar faces, or they can resonate with someone who's maybe the same color as them or speak the same language. That kind of puts people at ease as well. And what I would like to know is, well, since they have changed the rulings for the theory tests being in English only, how many people that do take tests, percentage wise, how many people fail purely because of not understanding? Or maybe the English, they do understand it, but maybe the words that are being used are probably a little bit higher English that a normal person might not understand. So I would want to know.
Yeah, look, I've been allegedly trying to speak English for the last 66 years and failing miserably. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so, and, you know, my English writing, I've solved my English writing problem. Yeah, I can now write English. I've got an app called Grammarly, and it puts all the dots and commas in the right place, you know? So it saves me now. I used to get told off on social media by the grammar police for not writing English. Yeah. I notice that lots of people are, you know, they go anonymous because when they're writing on social media, it does take some interpretation sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I don't know whether, you know, my thinking is, let's all start using Grammarly, so at least we're all speaking the same language.
Yeah.
So I think some of the things that we could suggest from the get-go, because I'm a solutions person, as I know all you lot are as well, rather than just a problems person, but it's also designed as a solution to understand the problems, is we've defined, even in the last 15-20 minutes, there clearly has not been an ask of the needs of ethnic minorities within the sector. There's very scant information on the demographics that include that on working as a driving instructor survey. There may be some stuff in the stats, but I wasn't able to uncover that very quickly as I quickly went through them on gov.uk. So maybe there is a need for a survey that we can put together as an industry first to ask the questions about need, experiences, all of those things that can combine to deliver better understanding and a better way of encouraging inclusion and participation. What do people think about that kind of approach?
I think, you know, that we've got to have a starting point. And the starting point is understanding what the problem is. We may not have a problem. People may think we haven't got a problem, and that's fine as well. But until we actually ask that question of what people think and do, we will never know. So the good starting point, like you said, Carly, would be that questionnaire that says, tell me X, Y, Z. Then we can get that. We need to know the demographics. How many do we have? What has the shift change been? Graham touched on this earlier, that there's a lot more age than everything else. Graham knows we've been in the taxi trade for 20 years. When we started the taxi trade, again, it was middle-aged white men. Slowly it moved to Asian men, and then it's progressed. And if you look at the driving industry, it's taking the same patterns. The people who were taxi drivers now are becoming driving instructors. We trained half of them on cabs, and now they're becoming driving instructors. So we do need to understand that demographics. We do need to understand their needs. We do need to understand what is it we're looking at, or what do we need, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, you wouldn't ever want to target any group of individuals to apparently give them a better experience without asking them first, what does better look like to you guys? What are the issues? And it's an arrogance, isn't it, to go, oh, well, look, we packaged up this solution for you. Well, did you ask me what solutions I actually wanted first, and what problems I had, and what needs I had? That's the ultimate kind of patronizing approach, isn't it? But we've seen it done. Unfortunately, we have seen it done.
Yeah.
Without it being a case of separation and having, just the ethnics over there and the whites over there, whatever it is. But what I would like it to look like is what the DVSA had before. And I know Carly, Graham, Tommy, maybe Samia as well. Before COVID, when the DVSA used to have the meetings up in Cardington, when they used to have Cardington, they used to have like the audit meetings, we used to go up there. And no matter what nationality, race or creed, they would just say, look, your trainers, you come. It would be great if they could do something very similar. Doesn't have to be geared to any one nationality, just for everybody. But maybe rather than the DIA does it, or the ADI, NJC, but the DBSA do it. Put a big meeting together, include everybody into it, maybe once every 6 months. And then that way we can get a nice view of all the different nationalities and how they feel about the industry and the things that they think we can do better going forward. Because they are our governing body, to say, So really, why don't they put something like that together?
Yeah.
And can I ask, like, you've been in the industry 25 years. What problems have you faced being a black face in the industry, or has it all been nice and smooth and not an issue? Because I know you're a big guy and I wouldn't argue with you.
Graham, I've worked, and I still do, I work in partnership with a lot of the national schools. And I have to say, I've had great relationships with the national schools, AA, BSM, RED, all of them. And I still work in partnership with all of them for many years. I wouldn't say I've had major problems with the DVSA. Where I've had problems in the industry is through my fleet business.
Okay.
So as a black man, I've got a very English name, Kenny Lawrence. So when my team are talking to companies, we're trying to get fleet contracts, and I might turn up to have a meeting with the owners of the business. What, you're Kenny Lawrence? So that's the sort of thing I come across. And it has affected me in the past, where, because, I've turned up, I'm a black man, and we've done the job, me and my team's done the job that day, but they didn't renew the contract. But then I end up going back to that same place a month later because somebody else who got the contract contacted me and said, Ken, we've got a job in your area. Can you, facilitate? We'll subcontract it to you. And I said, yeah, why not? And then I end up back at their door and they think, but we've not hired you. We've not. But I said, no, you haven't. I've been subcontracted to come in. But obviously you weren't happy with my business to start with. And the crazy thing that happened to me with a particular company in my neighbourhood, in my area in Wiltshire, I'm not going to mention the name of the company. And now I've ended up becoming best friends with the husband and wife who owns the company. And I asked him that question. And I said, the first time we did the job for you, and you said, yeah, we've got more drivers, we're going to need more training. And I said, great, you've got the office number, give them a call and we'll do the job for you. However, you went to another company. That showed you didn't have trust in me. And I said, was it because as a black man coming, you didn't really have the trust that we could perform the task? And I said, be honest with me, we're friends now. I'm sitting in your house, we have cups of tea, we're friends now. And he said, well, yeah, because I've just never really dealt with a black person in business.
And I think the danger is a wider political picture, isn't there? And I think that taints a lot of people. And also, Kenny, ignorance. I moved from North London to Kent. Now, North London, I grew up, I was running betting shops in Tottenham for 18 years. I could walk in a West Indian pub in Tottenham and everyone would know me. yeah, and everyone would buy me a drink. Yeah, brilliant. I moved down here, and it was interesting because it was like 96% white. And what I noticed, and this is what was significant for me, that there was a lot of racism amongst the whites here because they've never mixed.
That's all it was, yeah.
They never mixed. They didn't know. But then we had a guy, I won't say it, but a guy, we known him as Chelsea, just rather than say Chelsea Chris, black guy. He was all right. Yeah. He drank in the pub with us. He was okay. And it was like, yeah. And it was really sort of difficult, and it's still there.
It is. But that's because of the fear of the unknown.
That's
all it is.
And I think that leads nicely onto inclusivity, because there was a time that, you know, there was an array of people, and there still is, but now you can see that diffraction going as well, because you've got people that have got driving schools, and some of the driving schools predominantly are kind of the same people. They look the same, they feel the same, and everything else. So you are getting this diffraction going on. DVSA don't have local meetings anymore. There was once upon a time the DVSA centre manager would have said, I'm putting a meeting on, please tend. They don't do it anymore. That might be down to cost savings, it may be a couple of things, but that would have brought a community together. That would have created that inclusivity where they could have talked about some of the issues they had. But now we don't get that. So you'll get kind of our school that predominantly is probably 80%, you know, Black Asian people. But you might get a school down the road that might be predominantly white people, and that's just because that's the way it's happened. It's not, you know, deliberately done, but that does happen because people will kind of go towards a diffract their own, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, you,
Sure.
Tommy, you made me think
I've got
about associations, you know, and, you know, sometimes I think you've got to lead from the front, but is there a danger that if you started an association, that the only people who come to that association would be ethnic minority and not white people?
And this is not what we want, isn't it?
I know.
This is not.
Yeah.
But this is why it's got to be done by the DBSA centre managers.
Sure.
Bring everyone along. So it's open to everyone. It's very neutral. It doesn't matter who you work for, and you get an update. And that includes all, because we don't get, you know, yes, we get the DVSA webs, the emails. Who reads them? You know, we need to know that what's going on, and, you know, why we're not doing check tests anymore, and what the issues we are facing on the road with different driving instructors.
Well, when we had our NAST catch up the other day and the afternoon meeting that we had, the wider car driver forum, I did actually suggest that when they asked us as ways forward in terms of communicating, I said to them, you have a very uneven approach to test centre discussions. In some areas, you have really good test centre managers who will do really good briefings and include everybody, and they stick to the script of what they should say, but also take questions, right? And that is right. They should have a script, because it should be a central message that is conveyed to everybody that's consistent. Then you have other places where nobody's getting any meetings, no information. And so that's patently unfair to ADIs in one test centre who are getting no information, that others are getting a full briefing in another area. So why can't you deliver a form of consistency? And they did said, well, you know, the DCTMs can actually do that. The test centre managers could actually do more of that. So they've taken it away as an objective to try and run more regular town hall meetings, you know, and especially in the age of digital, you know, technology, I don't think any of us would mind that sometimes they might have to be like this by Zoom, as long as we got one, because, you know, you might not be able to get everybody to all one place on a Thursday night. If people could be granted access to Zoom as well, you could do that. But they have taken that away as a working point, that if you know, encourage all your test centres to do it. If you think you've got capacity and you think it's a good thing, DBSA, then encourage them all to do it. But make sure the information delivered in them is consistent, because again, it wouldn't be fair that, you know, somebody in Gravesend got a great town hall centre meeting and got loads of information, and then somebody in Bury, near where I come from originally, had a guy shuffling some papers at the front, not really knowing what to say.
Colin, that's like just going to the tooth fairy and asking for a magic wand, because at the moment, yeah.
In that meeting,
I understand, but they haven't got the capability to do that, because you know, it's all about the bloody test waiting times, and in the meantime, our whole standards seem to be dropping. Samia, you wanted to say something earlier. Is it still in your head?
It's gone.
Sorry, Samia.
Sorry,
I'm
Samia.
going to quickly try and allow Sika to speak, because they've been very patiently waiting with their
Okay.
hand up, and we've tried to let people speak before. Sika, you need to unmute your microphone if you can, to allow you to actually speak to us. So if you can do that now, then you can chip in with your question. I'll try and get you one in the meantime, but you need to, there'll be a pop-up coming on your screen that'll ask you to unmute. Are you able to speak to us now?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi,
Yes.
yes, it works. We've been trying to get people to be unmuted on this for several other Motormouths.
No, I've been on since 6:30. No, I'm just listening. I've got a question as well. I think you all are questioning and answering, so I'm listening. Yeah, so if I've got any questions, I will ask.
Okay, cool. So have you got a question for us now?
Not at the prime moment.
Right,
all
fine.
I can say, Samia's been my best support from Stoke-on-Trent. She's my mentor. She's my guidance. She's my number one. That's all I can say. Samia is
How much did you pay for that one? Eh?
No, Graham, no, I didn't pay nothing.
Don't get jealous.
It's the honesty. Honesty speaks out loud. She's the number one, and she's supported me. She knows my journey as an ADI,
Brilliant.
and it's been a tough one. All I can say, as Samia said, she was the first coming. Well, she's the second Asian instructor to come in Stoke-on-Trent, and I was third or fourth. Was I?
Yeah, I think we started. Remember at the same time.
We started together,
Yeah.
but I had quite
Yeah.
a few unsuccessful attempts, but I didn't give up. And all thanks to Samia, she's been my backbone. She's always supported me. She's been there. She's not let me give up. So she's always supported me. And all I can say, a big thank you goes out to Samia to where I am now.
We could do better as an association. It's something I was toying bringing in as a feature for the magazines and stuff as well. Profiling normal work, and you're not normal according to the people you've trained. You're exceptional, Samia, but profiling normal everyday working instructors about their day and what they do. And because we have people like the Edmund King from the AA, and then you have me gobbing off, and then you have an instructor who's happened to work with DIA for many years telling us about their instructional techniques. But we just need something in there that is, my day in a box, as it were, and allowing people to talk about the kind of diversity of what they do and the diversity of backgrounds, or my training life. So I'm sure we can create something like that very easily. But listening to how people are talking about you and the impact that you've had on their lives, seeing you up there, being able to talk about the work that you do is very inspiring for people.
Oh, definitely. I can vouch for that 110%.
And you know what?
I got above and beyond for Samia Sheed. She's my soul partner. Honestly, words can't justify what
she's gonna make my head explode. Now.
She's
gonna get too big for this.
She paid too much, Graham, today.
Living with somebody from Hanley, it's nice to hear something nice about people from Stoke, because I haven't often got a nice word to say about Dean. So all his family.
I'm not from Stoke-on-Trent. I'm originally from Birmingham, so I've moved to Stoke-on-Trent. So all I had was Samia Sheed here, and she's, as I said, she's supporting me up until today.
Right. Any
problem, just give Sam a call. Let's
flip to that as a topic, because I know Tommy mentioned this when we were having a chat on the phone the other day, and I know Samia, as an AGI trainer, will have some thoughts on this, and Kenny as well. For trainers, so we can move on to pupils in a moment, and the barriers that are in the way for pupils from ethnic minorities, and we'll go back to the question of the theory test. For trainers coming into the industry, what do you think we could do better for onboarding trainers for ethnic minorities and supporting them and attracting them actually to the sector? I know we've got huge demand to be an AGI at the moment, but is it coming from the right places, and are we encouraging the right kind of people to come into the profession?
I think with a lot of people, it's how they advertising to bring instructors into the industry. So there's been a lot of rise at the moment in PDIs that previously were maybe taxi drivers or bus drivers or working in the public sector maybe. And I feel as though because of the language barrier, they're thinking, oh, this is going to be so easy. And if Tom, Dick and Harry can do it, I can do it as well. And when they get into it, I feel as though it hits them hard. Number one, part one.
Yeah.
Agreed with Samia. Yeah, I agree.
Part two, again, when if they don't not taking
They're
part.
not taking understanding into knowledge, are they, Sam?
Yeah.
They're just thinking in the moment.
Can I say,
Oh, okay.
Samia, look, because I've worked with you for a long time.
Yeah.
I also know that you, as a woman, also find there is also barriers
Yeah,
that
definitely.
you're up against in
Well,
your own
as a
community.
woman, yes, as a South Asian woman, 100%. So I never actually felt, you know, the weight of bias or exclusion whilst I was training learners. I mean, I was buzzing. My business was booming because I could speak different languages and I was able to break down complex concepts and then they made sense to people. So that became my unique selling point. So I went independent at Samia's driving school back in 2013. Proudly ran my business under my own name for 10 years. And then after COVID, during COVID, actually, I did Train the Trainer with yourself, Graham. And again, I didn't actually do it for training instructors. I just wanted to know how I can be the best at my own job and keep my school running as it was. So I wasn't actually thinking of recruiting people or anything like that. So again, Psycho was one of my first PDIs who I helped out. She's a fully qualified ADI. She's got her own driving school as well. But then I started to train instructors, but people to become driving instructors. And that's when I felt the weight of the bias because, and the exclusion, to be fair, because I felt like my name became a problem.
Can I stop you there for a moment? Sorry about that. It's a lovely story. Who did you feel was giving you this sort of issue and problem?
Oh, I actually had an instructor say to me that they don't want to put my name on their driving school car because it's a woman's name.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I'm not making it up. It actually happened. So, and at that point...
But they worried that you would set a standard of driving that the men couldn't actually live up to.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So there was a time where...
Sorry, I'm showing bias quite clearly there.
Because of that hesitation on his part, it kind of made me think, will my business grow just me using my name? Now, again, because I'm a woman, it wasn't more the fact that I'm a woman. Maybe it was, but I think it was because I was South Asian, and it's more culturally than it was me being an actual woman. So then I decided, do you know what? I'm going to change my business school name to a more neutral, more scalable brand identity. So I changed it to Evolve Driver Training. And funnily enough, the PDIs that I have now, or the instructors that I teach, I'm training at the moment, they're all men, white men, and Asian, and from different backgrounds. So I didn't change the name because I thought that, yeah, they were right and my name's not going to get me far. I just thought that by changing it to a more neutral name, it's just going to go further.
What's interesting.
Should I have changed it? Tommy always says this to me. No, I shouldn't have. But again, I think, had I been a man, I would have stuck to my guns. Who knows?
So it's interesting because both Kenny and Samia now told a story which sounds like that just from where they're coming from, it can be damaging to your own self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
I want to say mine though, Graham. It doesn't damage mine.
It doesn't.
If anything, it's fuel for the fire for me.
Well, absolutely. Well, yeah, but I know
Honestly.
what I was thinking about is when you were going for that fleet job, you know, if I'm trying to walk in your shoes, even if, I would get the F off syndrome. I'm not having it.
Yeah.
However, I know that if I was there, I'd still get a little bit of me taken away, thinking, what is it? You know, why is it they've rejected me? Yeah.
I think as a British-born black person, Graham, I grew up in Hackney, not just down the road from me, in North East London. And in the era of me growing up, I'm in my 50s, and you know, now I don't want to go too deep how old I am, but going to school, mostly white people in the school that I went to a Catholic school that I grew up in. The racism was unbearable. You know, the neighborhoods you go to, that you're going home to, unbearable. So the challenges that's put in front of you, yeah, it's fight. Yeah, you know, fight or flight, isn't it? It's a survival mode all the time. So in my business, and all the business I've done in the past, it's always been a case of I'm not going to worry about what somebody else thinks about me or the color of my skin, or no, if anything, I'm going to go 10 times harder.
Yeah, it's constant
I would-
reinvention. Yeah, so it makes you more resilient anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, it does
Right.
fuel you.
Can I say something, please?
Yeah.
Can I say something, please?
Yeah.
Right. As Samia knows, I've opened my own driving school 2 years ago. Me and my husband's qualified as well. I've trained him. I've trained another person as well. I've got 2 PDIs working for me. One's an English gentleman. He's working without any hesitation. As Samia said, he doesn't question me for putting my roof sign, my name on his car. But I've got another Asian guy again, which is very, very reserved in using my name. Again, like Sam, I think it's not knocking our self-esteem. I think it's in the Asian culture, they feel very dominated and very pressurized working under a woman. Because when they think that they're the bosses, they don't want to feel dominated. I don't know how to put it correctly, as Sam, you can understand. I don't think it's knocking our self-esteem. I think it's the men that we train, Asian men that we train, they don't want to work under our names, that they'll be recognized. Oh, you're working under so-and-so. If we was opposite gender, they'd say, "Oh yeah, I work for him." But because you say when you work for her,
they'd be happy to be trained by a woman.
yes,
But, actually support her, I'd say.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So on that, I can relate to Sammy what she's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other question here is about vulnerability. We have to discuss vulnerability because at the moment you're getting a lot of people that are being kind of brought into the industry on a great deal, cheap deals by high brands, low brands that are saying we'll do some really good cheap training for you, and there is no gateway to again check the validity of that person. Now, when they've signed up for £900,000, whatever it might be, then people are kind of sitting there thinking, this is it, I've got a new career. But they're fast realizing, actually, my English isn't good enough. They then start doing the theory 10 times, 13 times. That surely can't be right. And is that not exploitation of vulnerable people? And that's across the board, because we're not really giving them the real kind of synopsis that the pass rate might only be 30%. We take a lot of calls. I field a lot of calls where people say, I've joined a school, I've joined this and I've joined this, and I'm really struggling. I can't get past my part 1. I can't get my past 2. And yes, some of that will be down to them just not doing it correctly. But when you speak to them, you know the English quality, shall we call it, is never going to let them pass it because they just don't have that understanding. But the school, whoever that might be, has signed them up because it's a great deal.
But that's been like that for many years though, Tommy.
Absolutely, yeah. That doesn't make it right though. And
it doesn't make it right, but it's a process that's been there for many, many years.
And that's what we've got to improve. We've got to understand how do we change that process so that people don't feel at that point. So why are they at that point? There should be a prior test. There should be something that gatekeeps them that says, actually, because you can't do this 20 questions, 30 questions, we can't let you through the process.
Maybe the part 1 should be like the part 2 and the part 3. 3 attempts as a maximum.
Yeah, that might be the answer. But the question here is, do they lose their money? So if they're paid up front, remember we want to integrate part 1, part 2, part 3 in a nutshell. If we do that, we're segregating everything else. Now, to be a taxi driver, in most licensing committees, they've got to do some kind of knowledge test and some kind of testing system that shows their English is good enough. And if they can't do that, they're not even going to get through that.
We're in the midst of proposing a new framework to DVSA that is not just there's a big fever at the moment in some quarters for producing a course that they think is going to be the next new ADI qualification, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. Knock yourselves out, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. There's a process to be gone through to create that, and it'll take years. What we can do, though, however, is wrap stuff around that will support people coming into the industry. And it's not a video with lots of people talking about their business on it. It's actually a training program, a pre-PDI training program, and a level of aptitude testing. As you say, Tommy, very similar, because we're both in the same world there, to what local authorities will propose for a new taxi driver: a knowledge test, safeguarding child sexual exploitation, literacy and numeracy. However, and I agree, there should be some level of aptitude screening. As I pointed out to the registrar in our meeting the other day, this isn't just to help the PDI not get ripped off or come into the wrong sector for them. It's also to help the agency actually focus on the people that should be coming into the sector and not waste valuable administrative time on those who shouldn't be coming into the sector. But along with that screening, I think we need to do some signposting that says to people, look, you haven't been successful this time. Here's where you can go to, though, that'll get you ready for your next attempt. Because at the moment we have a system which just says, failed, off you go. There's not really a lot of signposting about where you get the actual support to be successful next time.
Yeah,
I've got there's something come up in chat, and I think it's really interesting, and I'd like the panelists' views on this. It's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've got someone saying it's a misguided concept. It fosters divisiveness. It promotes low standards by positive discrimination, and should be discarded without hesitation. Mutual respect does not need diversity, equity, inclusion. I will die on the hill of eradicating it. It will not long before systems and organisations realise they've shot themselves massively in the foot. Get rid now. One of my best friends was a South African Indian, and he moved back out to Durban. And when I went out to see him in Durban, they had changed all the street names to Zulu names. No one knew where they were going anymore. Bearing in mind, Durban's got the highest Asian population outside India of any city in the world, and what the problem was there with this, and this reminded me of this diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everybody had to employ someone from the Zulu nation. They knew they weren't the best candidate, but they knew no other way to raise the standards without getting them into work and into positions. And I just wondered what you think of what I've just said.
I think that goes back to the beginning, the start of our conversation today about just having somebody in a position as a token. That's the wrong way to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's the wrong way to go.
Okay,
The
good.
question I want to ask you, Graham, is that, and just out of choice, where's that comment come from? Is it come from somebody that lives in our shoes?
I don't know. This Q&A has come from.
I don't personally want you to answer that question, but has that person got lived in experiences?
I don't know.
Because, and that's the question you first got to ask is, are they somebody that doesn't have them kind of issues? And we're not talking about just race, color, and cultures. We're talking about ADH, we're talking about SEND pupils, we're talking about so many different attributes that collect into diversity inclusion as well. We kind of say, oh yeah, it's just this and this. It's not. It's an array of different things. Do we start then discounting everything and say, nope, it doesn't work?
And Neoban, you've been waiting very patiently there. Can you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you want to pose a question, or do you even want to respond to that point about shouldn't have all these DEI policies? We shouldn't be trying to listen to people and be fair to them and accommodate them anyway.
Yes.
We should be treated the same.
Yes. Yes. Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to say that you guys are trying to work with this diversity, and I'm hearing all of you great view. So how come you're gonna change the house of the instructor recruiting or everything if DVSA itself is not changing the structure? It's a white DVSA. the structure is a white DVSA. So most of the examiners are white. There is very few Black people or very few Asian. So their structure is not changing. How are we going to change it? So they have to, it has to change from the ground.
Yeah.
So it has to change from the house. Once they start to recruit examiner in all diversity, say Asian, Chinese, Black people, white people, whoever it is, then it start to change on the instructor, that recruitment sector as well. Now, the instructors, say Asian instructor, they are, as Samia said, the way they teach, Shandu, the way they propose to their students or things, it's not the same thing in white people or Black people. So when the white examiner is coming, the way he is thinking, when the Asian students is going to exam, the instructor, most of them, I mean, I can see that Asian or Black in our area, very less white people. So what I'm trying to say, it has to be changed from the house. It's from the change from the house. And how we're going to change it? How we're going to make ourselves to them that, okay, you need to change.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
diversity would be there.
Okay,
I
good
think-
point. Let's like our panel respond to that.
Okay, I think the first thing is that this is exactly why we're here today.
Yeah.
We've put posts out, you know, I suppose I've kind of put myself out a little bit. I've put posts out, and sometimes the posts are great. Sometimes the post can be kind of like, you know, they vilify you or everything else. But if we don't put it to the table, if we don't bring it out there, and we don't get other minority groups joining these debate, then it will never get answered. It's the basic breadline of anything. So we've got to start the conversation somewhere, and this is where it started. And it's got to grow. You've got to get people on this, and we're just three people of a, you know, an array of people, and there's some very bright people out there that I speak to on a regular basis, but we've got to start bringing them into the party. And as soon as we do bring them into the party and get an understanding of what the issues are, we can start to sort them.
Yeah.
That's as simple as it gets.
It's about just acknowledging the barriers and maybe promoting more diverse role models or inclusive training, encourage these type of conversations, to be fair, because sometimes they are uncomfortable and not many people want to put themselves out there and be in that position to represent and you know, maybe an entire minority, because like, I mean, when you see posts on Facebook like the ones that you just posted, Tommy, I read them and I was like, wow, it's ignorant, because end of the day, until you're walking in our shoes or you've lived it, you won't know how it feels. I mean, as me myself, even when I started my training years ago, I never used to wear, I wore the headscarf, but then I wanted to fit in. And then I had one of my trainers say to me, oh, are you trying to be westernized? And I was like, whoa. So it's, you're always trying to fit in, but then until you don't find your own feet, find your own voice, I think that's what matters here. So just speaking up and putting things on the table and seeing where it goes.
And I think a couple of things we can take away from this very early session on this. I certainly want to have more discussions on this topic, and I'm sure you guys do as well. And there's other people and wider groups within the mix that we need to speak to as well. We haven't even, if we're talking about inclusion and diversity, we haven't even spoken about some groups that fall into that yet, have we? We talked about ethnicity tonight a lot and culture. We haven't talked about sexuality and all those other things as well. So and we plan to do that in another session as well. But this immediately calls for some kind of deeper dive survey than clearly the regulator has done. And I'm very happy to launch that, and we'll make it anonymous so people can share their experiences, or, you know, they can put their name to it. It's really up to people. But I'd like to work with you guys on here to draft that out and use you as guinea pigs. And then let's send it out to the wider community of trainers. And I think from that, because I'm a very processy person, as you can tell, I think from that, you get your agenda for what will be the first working group with DVSA. Now, we can very easily set up a subgroup of NAS, National Association Strategic Partnership, that works on this. It was in my plan to suggest to the rest of the NASP actually in coming weeks that maybe we should open NASP up a little bit more and have things like a franchise subgroup, you know, other subgroups that are of a specific area of interest that needs to be represented, other than just the national associations going in. So I'm very happy to look at that. But that would be my process: is survey first, get that wider view of experience. As Tommy said, what are people's needs? We need to ask people what their needs are first. And then ask people also for solutions and ideas and things that we can do, rather than just presenting the problems. We need to look at the problems, we need to look at solutions, and then use that to form an agenda to suggest to DBSA that we need to have a first initial working group to tackle the things that come up from that survey. And we've spoken about some tonight. We talked about examiner recruitment, role models, access to the sector, training, remedial training for people who are struggling with the language barrier. And then we can also include in that pupil challenges, because Samia, I know you've been, you know, very passionate about the fact that, you know, we took away the support for pupils who are non-native English speakers in the theory test process and in the practice.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to reinstate it if we want people to achieve. And it's not about saying they can't drive just because they can't speak the language perfectly. Actually, they might be a perfect driver behaviourally, they just maybe have a language barrier.
It's funny because I come across so many, and like driving's a skill, and they're able to drive perfectly, not a problem, but just theory becomes an issue. But then when you're explaining the theory to them in their own language, or even languages I don't speak, I still go out of my way to try my best to explain something. And I do feel as though to make safer, confident drivers, if they're understanding the rules of the road in their own language, that makes more sense to me. That creates better drivers, as opposed to take the English away. The languages away completely, and making out that that's part of inclusion, and so that, you know, you can speak more English. They do. They're doing their best. They're trying to get jobs, but to get jobs you need a license. So sometimes I feel as though it creates a blockage.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't need to be.
And we're encouraging people to participate
in every. Can I go to the chat, Carly? Sorry, to the question.
You go to chat. Whilst you're doing that and tell that question, I'm going to go to each of the panelists for your kind of final challenges, questions. Just aware that we're getting to 2030.
There's a couple of things. There's a lady, Mimi, who I know. She's a black lady. She said when she started I think this is the start towards change. Inequality is the first thing she saw when she joined the industry. But there is a question here. As experienced people in the industry, what opportunities to represent have the panel not been offered or received in their career? Well, you've been offered one this evening, but prior, maybe you didn't want to. I don't know.
I think I've done a lot in my career of 22 years. I've done right across the board and everything else. I think I've had a lot of opportunities in my career with international TTC and everything else. But have we been recognised by the DVSA, the associations within our culture? We haven't. Do I get people coming to me and saying, why are you not part of our kind of association? No. So I think that's where we've got to kind of almost say, no, we don't recognise our own people because we don't know who they are, or because we don't choose to. I don't know what the answer to that one is.
Well, myself, I don't really like putting myself out there. And I think that's been one of my biggest struggles. As career-wise, I've done well for myself as a single mother. I've been doing this for the past 18 years now, so I'm happy where I am, but at the same time, I would want things to change in the industry, where there's more inclusion for every type of person, not just people from culturally minority backgrounds, everyone, and let their voice be heard.
Kenny?
For me personally, I want the diversity, but without grouping.
Yeah.
You know, I just want it to be all inclusive.
Yeah.
White, black, Asian, Chinese, whoever you are. And I think we have to start the DBSA with that. We have to go back to how it used to be before, when we used to have meetings and invite everybody, no matter what nationality, race or creed. It shouldn't be, as we said earlier, just, you know, middle age or, you know, men over 50 or white, you know, inclusive for everybody. So we can have that meeting. And if you choose not to come, that's your problem. You had the opportunity. But we've gone so far back. I don't know if it's since COVID, but gone so far back into them and us. They do what they got to do. We have a lot of people coming into the industry. We even have the national schools selling courses to PDIs and targeting specific set of people. Say, oh, if you're a taxi driver, come and be a driving instructor. Those companies know why they're targeting that particular set of people. They know why. Because deep down they're thinking half of them's not going to pass anyhow, but I'm going to get their money. I was talking to Lynn Fitzharris and Nigel Robertson last Monday, and they were saying to me about, because I was saying to them, well, you two were part of the problem, because you both were assistant chief driving examiners. You know, you was running the DVSA at one period. And I said, well, what did you do at the time when you was there to create change? And they said, but our hands were tied. So if your hands are tied, the next person that's in charge, who we have now, are their hands tied? So since then, as Graham knows, I've been in conversation and about this new test structure that we have in a waiting list with the Transport Minister, who's my local MP, Heidi Alexander, who's invited me to be part of the policy team working with, you know, the test situation at the moment. Now, there's simple things that need to be fixed, but for us as driving instructors, most of us are self-employed. For people working at the DVSA, they're employees. As long as they're getting their paycheck at the end of the month, are they going to change things? Not easily, are they?
Yeah.
So we want to have change. I think most of the ADIs and the PDIs in the industry do want change. We want to change the test waiting list. We want to change who comes in the industry and have proper checks to make sure, you know, the people who have been caught doing dodgy things are being put in front of the fit and proper unit. But a lot of that's still not getting done because we have backlogs in all different angles of that business, of the DVSA business. Yeah. So
can I
just
come back to,
yeah.
because the person, sorry, Kenny, to answer, you asked the question who was asking the question, Tommy, earlier, and I think we should just address this. Okay, to answer the query, I am a white middle-aged male living and working in a heavily rural location. I'm sorry that Tommy feels my views are already null and void because I lack lived experience. He's simply proving my point about the divisiveness of DEI. We all need to respect each other. What we absolutely do not need is to give preference to minority groups. Indeed, the panel itself is made up of a majority of non-white participants. They made successful careers because they're competent and capable. Not everyone is cut out for every job. Would you like your local mechanic to do your brain surgery? So, Tommy, I'm just going to give you a right to reply to that.
I think I would invite that person to come and spend a day with me. And that would be a real, you know, I'll take him out, my expenses. Let's see how he feels when he sits with me, with my minority, with the groups we work with, and get that experience. Let's see if he changes his mind. And I'll spend a day with him in a rural town and see how it works, and yeah, how people receive me in his rural community, I suppose, is a kind of a good way to put it. So I'll put the challenge back. I'm quite happy to spend a day. You know, let him shadow me, or I can shadow him. Let's put it into practice.
Yeah,
and that's the only way we'll get a lived-in experience
and understanding and promoting respect as well.
Yeah, and it's not about divisiveness. This is about getting to understand.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's about saying to people,
we're actually trying to avoid ghettoizing things.
That's right.
We're trying to say, in the true spirit of, for example, client-centered learning, where can we promote better understanding so we all understand how to work with each other, treat each other, all of those things. So what's in the national standards for pupils and what is in the national standards for driver and rider trainers anyway is about being client-centered, and that is about an understanding of others that are different from us and how they have different needs and how to address those needs. And I think, you know, we can pin this on the national standards if we want to. We'll find a way.
We're happy to do it. I'm always happy to have that chat. And I think, you know, as a final moment, I suppose, is that we don't talk about the DVSA issues. We've talked about our issues and the concerns we have, but we know that the DBSA has issues with driving instructors and the way we conduct ourselves and everything else. And in the recent weeks, as we know, there's been major issues with the Rotherham cases and everything else. And when Kenny said there's certain people that are advertising for taxi drivers, are we waiting for a problem that may happen?
Yeah.
Who's gatekeeping this? Who's policing this? We've got no standard checks, and I would love to know what the complaint levels are at the moment, because I know personally that we get told about stuff like this that goes on. But are we moving into something that could become a problem? People won't talk about it because they feel they can't, and this is where the problem starts again.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Tommy. People feel they can't talk about it. However, what I had the problem is people end up being rude, you know, and there's no necessity for being rude. You can speak your mind, you know, but to be rude is not going to win any battles. And I think what happens is too often people end up with their right of reply and then they're rude, and then that just to me just makes the whole thing null and void.
There's another clear gap as well, that we talked about the fact that, you know, in the pre kind of onboarding of PDIs and actually attracting people to the sector, there's a gap. But there's also a massive obvious gap in training. There is no equality and diversity training element to becoming an ADI. It's a people qualification to deliver training to people, and there's no equality and diversity training that occurs in that. You know, and if you look at most other areas of training, there is equality and diversity training going on in there. You know, and it's about being client-centered learning. And as much as, you know, we think that safeguarding should be a crucial element of an ADI qualification, I can never for the life of me understand why we haven't got that. You know, I think equality and diversity should be about that, because it's not just talking about, you know, a few, you know, ethnic minorities on this call and what somebody clearly thinks is a bit of tokenism. It's about the fact that, you know, as a female, you know, there are things that a male instructor will have to understand about me. As a female who is 50 and menopausal, there are things you're going to have to understand about me that, you know, might actually impact my driving and my safety. A question I asked Lisa Dawn the other day was, you know, is there anything about being a female and menopausal that I have to watch out for? Because brain fog's a massive thing for us. We can't even remember our own name or why we walked into a room sometimes. So driving's going to be a challenge, isn't it? So I just think, you know, if we have that element in the foundations of ADI training, I'm not saying we'll reach some perfect world where there will never be any problems again of prejudice. However, it will start the inclusion journey a bit better than we're starting it at the moment.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So we're at 2041. So it's clearly been a good discussion because we've gone over time. Thank you so much, guys, for this evening. Again, I don't want this to be tokenism in itself. So if you guys here and others that you might recommend are happy to work with me on the crafting of that initial survey and then working that through to an initial conversation with DVSA and other trainers and any other ideas that we think we can work through, I will, as I always say to people, not being even an ADI, I am not an expert in these fields. I am simply the gob that sometimes gets you through the door and you know, and amplifies things for you. Are we happy to maybe work on some of these first steps? There should have been steps taken years ago. Back when Neil Armstrong took his first steps on the moon, we should have been taking these steps.
On the moon?
But we're taking it now. Don't start with your conspiracy theories, Graham. No one wants to hear them. So any very last thoughts from anybody, anything that we haven't captured today? As I said, we'll continue this conversation into other segments. Well, you know what's really positive stuff in the chat as well? I've heard and I've been seeing about local networking groups. Lady on here was telling me there was over 20 of them went out for lunch today in their group, and they had really good discussions about that. So at a local grassroots level, sometimes there's better stuff going on than there is at national level. So we've got a lot to learn at national association level from local associations as well. well. So encouraging
Yeah, and I think
network is important.
they need to shout about it. We need to hear it, yeah, and not hide it. We need to hear that the industry, all of us, we need to hear what's going on at grassroots, so we start to get a real picture, because social media is such a horrible picture. And you know, as an admin of a group, I know who's posting when it's anonymous. Okay, so I can see, yeah, and I know that, you know, I'll take down the wind up posts because I know they're not being posted by someone who's meaning it. However, it's not, it just ends up in a blooming row. Whereas we need to hear about this, and I think we need to do this again, maybe, I don't know when, 3-6 months time, to see if there's been, and I think maybe probably 6 months, to see if there's been a change. And I challenge all the Asian, black and ethnics across, is to shout it out, you know, get your voice heard, because, you know, listen to me and Carly, our voices get heard. Yeah.
But on the point of bullying, if anybody is experiencing that in any way, and I saw the post the other day about somebody who tragically is thinking about leaving the sector because they feel that they are being, you know, taken too much on now in terms of the other people's views on how they should be living their life and training their pupils, which is ridiculous. You know, we should be fostering a culture of feeling that you can speak out and that you can whistleblow. I think whistleblowing is terribly important. It's got negative connotations, but without people feeling they can whistleblow about an issue, we don't get that light cast on some of these issues. And I know it's very difficult, but if you are struggling to find the right channel and you want to be anonymous, you can always come through us. You know, I'm working with members all the time on difficult issues, confidential issues, in tribunals, investigations under conduct, all those kind of things. So as a starting point, let's start with that. But if, you know, but we need to make more concrete channels available for people to disclose issues that they might be having, either with a local test centre, another ADI, whoever it is that's making their life a misery, and pushing them down, generally so they can feel that they're up here. And actually, if you're pushing somebody down, you're not up here, you're lower than low. But, you know, we need to do some more of that work as well. So final thoughts, people, before I flick the button off.
My final thought is, I'm still looking forward to being more educated as the ignorant white man. Yeah, because I think it's important. I don't know enough. You know, I try hard, but I was chatting with Samia the other day, and this was a problem. Samia said, "Shut up, Graham, just say it as it is." Yeah, because I was like, well, what do I say? You know, how do I get my words right? And she knew exactly. Yeah, so, and that was useful.
Yeah. Okay.
Kenny?
And that's the problem there, isn't it? The fear that people are, I know people say about woke and various other things, people are frightened to say exactly what they're feeling and what it is. Because you come across it, I know in my area, as an area that's predominantly white, I mean, we have lots of different other nationality, from Brazilians to Goans, Nepalese, but I think sometimes the white instructors are frightened to say how they feel, where they should feel comfortable, as long as they're not being, you know, racist and various other things, but feel free and comfortable to say exactly what it is. Yeah.
Tommy, I'm just going to unmute another panelist for 1 second after Tommy and Samia have had their final thoughts, because she wants to highlight the fact that she's got a BAME Facebook page for this very purpose. So I'll let Tommy go and then Samia.
Okay, I think inclusivity is the key word here. We want to improve our industry. We are passionate about driving instructor and driving instructor training, and this is what this is all about. It's about making sure that the quality of our service doesn't change, and that we deliver the best service we can to our clients and keep our roads safer.
Brilliant. Samia?
So basically what Tommy just said, inclusion isn't just a buzzword. It's the key to a stronger, more connected industry where every instructor and pupil can thrive, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Morel, I've just sent you a message saying if you can try and unmute and we can try and hear you. Whilst I'm closing up the conversation. There you are. There you go. Sorry about that. Sorry it took time to come to you.
That's all right.
Would you like to highlight your BAME group on Facebook? Because that might be useful for people to find that somewhere.
That would be amazing. It's a group I created, and I did have a lovely chat with Graham and told me about my group. And when I went for my training, Graham, and then Graham was like very glad to invite me and said, you know what, I don't relate to you because I don't understand what you're going through. But what about you make your group public? It's a bit still private, but I did like the advice that Graham, because it's me who's going through that I can express myself better. But advice was there, and this meeting for me was wow. I'm like, oh my God, I need to attend this today. And I really liked it. I like the panel, and I know Graham, I met Kenny once. Samia, I haven't met. Carly, I watch you. I read all your. I'm a member of the DIA,
Nice to
so I
meet you,
see
Varel.
everything. Yeah. So when it comes to diversity, yes, it's very difficult for me as a woman, as Black, as a French speaker. Therefore, I have to learn the language. For some people, it's kind of, oh yeah, but just learn it. So what? So be it, but it's not easy. So I have to work harder than anybody else. And I've got learners who are struggling now. Some of them, they come for ferry tests, and I'm glad to send them to Tommy, because Tony has got a set of very different languages, which I don't have. But when it comes to driving, I have to translate. I have to make sure it's done. So we talked about having a translator, which I know we cannot, because DVSA will not allow that. But it's something I know maybe they're a bit scared of thinking maybe the person sitting at the back might help them to drive. But anybody with a learning difficulties, dyslexia, language barrier, anything, it doesn't mean that they are incapable of doing things, but there are ways to help them to achieve their goals, because this is what they want to do. What about supporting these people with other ways for them to be happy one day, not feeling that I couldn't achieve my goal as a driver because of my language barrier? So those are the things that I would love, to see. And funny enough, because when I went to Graham for my training, I am still a DI, but I wanted to progress. So I went for my training, and I approached another instructor here, he's white, just to go and sit in his car, just to see how it works. And it was like, yeah, we do it, Mimi, I will let you know, but never. And I got a text message about 2 weeks ago. Ivan told me about an ADI, so a PDI that he sent to me. And I was like, wow, this man does not even want me to sit in his car. He's not helping me. But now he sent me just out of the blue a PDI. But when I went to meet the PDI, I now understand the reason why. He's African, can't speak a good English. He took him try to test, he failed with like 4, 5, 6 driving faults. Because he has struggled with him, he sent him to me. And I felt it not like a good thing. I felt like, wow, it's because he's Black, you struggled. Like, oh, let me send him to Mimi. Mimi will deal with it. She has to help him. So that's how I felt. But I had made him a mission. So
Mimi,
I told myself, yeah.
Stick your tag me into your group, and then also you can put it on my Facebook group. I want to be a driving instructor, PDI advice and chat.
Okay,
Stick
thank you.
it in there as well.
Yeah, and I'll
I
pick
think
it up.
Chris Benstead is about. Ask him if he can stick it in his as well.
Okay,
Et
amazing.
merci pour votre contribution et te voir ce soir.
Oh, wow! Pas de
Oh,
problème,
no.
Carly. Merci encore. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, well, merci pour tout le monde. So thank you to everybody.
Très bien.
It's been a really good first session, and that's my commitment. It's a first session. I'm going to look to Tommy, Kenny, and Samia and others to lead me on what kind of topics we should discuss next time in this session, and also the work that we need to do to move forward with things that will create more inclusivity in the sector. I'd like to thank everybody who's turned up tonight, especially those panelists who spoke, 1 for speaking and 2 for proving me right that we have actually got this function within Zoom and that we are able to use it at some point, because we've been promising it for a long time on Motormouth. And we've gone slightly over time, but I think as with any topics that we go over time on here, it's because there's an interest and a passion. So I'm not going to shut that down. And hopefully we'll continue this dialogue, and it will be more of a dialogue with other parties that need to hear from us as well, such as the DVSA. And we'll take it upon ourselves to go and talk to DVSA about some of the issues that we've been outlining tonight. So thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Samia. Thank you. And thank you, Graham, for starting the coordination of this exercise as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.